We are three couples therapists. I'm Catherine Barton with my two colleagues.
Hi, I'm Anna Kisting. I'm the Executive Director of Cozy Chair Counseling in St. Peters, Missouri.
And I'm Andrew Frager with St. Louis Family Counseling and Blue House Therapy in St. Louis and in Western Massachusetts, which is where I am.
And I'm with Uplift and Connect Counseling in Kirkwood, Missouri. I forgot to say that. But today we are talking about the Four Horsemen, right? So the Four Horsemen that were coined by John Gottman, right, are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. So I'm curious, first of all, Andrew, I know you have some background information to share.
Yeah, so first of all, John and Julie Gottman, they've done some of the most research in couples scientific research out there. John's been doing it for at least 40 years. They built a house where they put people in with cameras and hooked them up to machines and did all this kind of futuristic scientific
The Love Lab,
research on them.
right?
Yeah, Love Lab.
Yeah, the Love Lab. And John Gottman also says that he can watch any couple talk about a perpetual problem in their relationship for like, I forget what the exact numbers are, like 10 minutes, and with 90 some odd percent accuracy determine if they're going to be together in like 5 years or 6 years.
Which is amazing.
And the way that he primarily does that is by listening for these four horsemen, which again are criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. So that's what we're going to talk about here today, because not only does this help in relationships with your partner, but all relationships, work relationships, relationships with kids, talking with another human being, this is comes into play.
And a lot of conflict that couples face are directly connected to some of these concepts. So when we're feeling yucky with our partners, when we're feeling like things are hard, we can usually look underneath all of that or look at that situation and say, oh, hi, contempt. Hi, stonewalling.
Right.
There you are. Good to
Right.
see you. And so we would like to share what these look like, because it's important. If we can understand what's going on, then we can figure out ways of solving some of these issues.
Yeah. So to start us off, so when we think about criticism, right? So when I think about criticism, I think of it as a complaint, but it's a complaint that's kind of more about the partner's character. You're kind of more criticizing who they are as a person instead of maybe complaining about the situation or about what's going on. So I'm curious for the two of you, your take on that and how that shows up in your office.
I think about how a lot of times with criticism, I'll hear like, you never show up for me. You never want to have sex with me. You. And it's always commenting on the other person, and this really like negative tone of like criticism, of kind of like feeling really dissatisfied with them as a person almost. Like it's not just a behavior, it's a, you're lazy. You don't love me. You're not enough. You're not doing what I need you to do. When in reality, there is really just that person's just wanting that connection there, and that's what they're feeling upset about. But it comes across as, well, you're not doing this because I love you so much. I would love if you would show up for me this way. But that part doesn't get communicated. They don't say that out loud. It would feel so good to connect with you, but you never listen to me because I want to be heard. That part, that squishy, vulnerable part never really gets communicated. The criticism comes out. And then that can lead to some of the other four horsemen that we can talk about.
And then the result of a criticism coming at you and you're getting hit with this criticism, you're like, oh, no. And then that's where defensiveness comes back. And then we say, well, I didn't do it, you did it. And we throw it back in our partner's face. Well, if you didn't do blah, 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 blah. But that's, because when that comes at us, it's like, ooh, this doesn't feel good. I don't like this. I don't want to feel this. I'm going to just reflect it and deflect it right back to you.
And that makes sense. We're getting attacked. We got to guard ourselves and shield ourselves from that stuff. So we have to defend. And that usually can look like, it's just like being quiet. And we'll talk about that later, that four horsemen later, but that can also look like lashing out. I see defensiveness as accusations. I see defensiveness as totally not seeing your partner's, what they're actually expressing. It's just being able to lash out to defend yourself and say, well, that's not true. Or quibbling over content. You guys probably see this all the time, like quibbling over, well, no, it wasn't 8 o'clock. It was 7 o'clock. It's like this defensive, like, okay, but yeah, but you were late and you made us late. Okay, but it wasn't at that time, and that's not what you,
Right.
that's not right. You don't know what you're talking about. And then we get into this spiral in our offices, right? That we have to jump in and be like, whoa.
One, I
Yeah.
think, Anna, too, what you said when you talked about there being a lot of yous, I think a lot of time when I hear you, I might automatically get defensive then as well, right? So it feels natural to hear a you that feels like a criticism and to respond with defensiveness to that pushback. And another piece to the defensiveness is not taking responsibility for my part in it, right?
Yeah.
Because that can be a really hard thing to do, to admit maybe I do have a part in this, or admit fault in some places, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's a big piece of it too.
Yeah, and that requires us to tap into kind of our own vulnerability a little bit, right? And that's the hard part. That's the scary part. That's, it might not be safe to be that if, all this criticism is coming at us. And then what's even worse than criticism is contempt, right?
Yep.
Tell
You're
us
reading
about
my
it.
mind, Andrew.
Yeah.
And contempt is what apparently the research shows is the number one kind of predictor of divorce or relationships breaking up.
Yeah.
And contempt is like criticism is complaining. Contempt is complaining with a sense of superiority, like I'm better than you.
The way you do things is worse.
Yeah.
Like your approach is wrong. I'm right and you're wrong. I'm doing it better and you're not. I'm succeeding. I'm working hard here and you're not. And you suck.
Yeah.
Right? It's this hierarchical, and that feels horrible. Because how can we have connection when we're not even on the same level?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do everything around here and you just come home and sit on the couch. Or
Right.
So that's not a safe place then to become vulnerable, right? That's not a safe place to kind of own what's going on. And so you're not going to do that. Defensiveness is going to come back up.
Yep. And then a lot of times what we see is when you've tried a strategy to try to deal with that, maybe you act defensive, maybe you lash out, maybe you try to repair, maybe you try to say something, nothing's working. And a lot of times what I see couples do is just shut down and go away, and they have to retreat into their own space. And that's called stonewalling. So when I can't talk about it with you. I'm not talking about this anymore. Because knowing there's not going to be a productive conversation that's going to happen, right? When someone's feeling unheard, or when they're feeling like my partner's not going to hear me anyway, what's the point? I'm just going to.
It might happen, right?
It's going to be criticized.
Yeah. So the criticism comes up, the defensiveness, the contempt, defensiveness, criticism, defensiveness, all of those are right. They're kind of all there for a while, and then it's at some point you're just like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It feels kind of hopeless, or I give up. Like trying isn't working, it isn't helping, it might be making it worse. And so it feels better just not to do it or to walk away, right?
So Stonewall is just like shutting down, putting yourself like it's a protective move. I mean, right? It's a protective move to protect yourself from getting more stuff coming at you. Just kind of that like.
To jump on that, not to interrupt you, Andrew, to jump on what you said, Catherine, about stonewalling, about how whatever I do makes it worse. I hear from a lot of clients that they stonewall, they shut down because they don't want to hurt their partner more, because they don't have the words to say that will actually make it feel better. And they're afraid if they say something, it's going to be hurtful and it's going to end the relationship. So a lot of times stonewalling, like you said, Andrew, is totally a protection. It's definitely a protection. And it's really to protect the relationship. And it's unfortunate because it comes from a place of trying to salvage the relationship by pulling away, but it often has the opposite effect because it's disconnecting. And then they're not able. What was that, Catherine?
Well, it can feel really cold.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when your partner shuts down, then the other person's like, well, what's the point? They walked away. They don't care. When in reality, the opposite is true. They care so much a lot of times that they have to shut down because it's too painful to engage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so like, does this sound like something that you're familiar with? Like you people that are listening to this video, like this sound like, oh yeah, I get this, right? This, I've seen this, I've experienced this.
Yeah.
The answer is going to be yes, because we all have, right? These are
Right.
most. And now once we have some awareness of it, then it's like, oh, that's what this is. It's not, the problem isn't my partner. The problem is the criticism, but the criticism probably has a good reason for being there. You know, like things aren't going quite right, that you're feeling like you're being missed, you're feeling like you're being abandoned, you're feeling like you're, you know, being told you're doing it wrong. So the criticism comes out all for good reasons, but how we then deal with it is, you know, what we get to do. And we get to have, we're going to have another video on some of the antidotes of these four horsemen.
I was gonna say, yeah, so we went through all the four horsemen, and this was just kind of an introduction to what they are, to help you identify them when they show up and know there are ways that we can, you know, respond to them in more positive ways. So those would be the antidotes, and stay tuned for the next video to learn about those.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
I'll see you guys.